The Matrix franchise, whether intentionally or not, draws heavily from Gnostic mythology, blending it with cyberpunk, existential philosophy, and religious symbolism. While the films are not a perfect one-to-one representation of Gnosticism, many of the characters, themes, and symbols align closely with Gnostic teachings, particularly the idea of awakening from an illusion to discover the truth. However, some aspects heavily diverge, especially with regard to free will, redemption, and the nature of divinity. Let's see what it all means. In Gnosticism, the material world is an illusion created by the demiurge, a false god who traps souls in ignorance. True enlightenment comes from escaping the illusion and returning to the divine truth. In the Matrix is a digital prison, a false reality created by the AI overlords, akin to the demiurge. Humans live in ignorance, believing a false world controlled by malevolent forces. This is a perfect Gnostic parallel. The real world is hidden from those trapped in an illusion, and only through knowledge, gnosis, can one escape. And in the Matrix, escaping the real world is always done through one's own free will. People aren't forced because, as Morpheus explains it, they will often reject the reality. So to prevent Neo from falling to a similar fate, Morpheus offers Neo the choice. Take the red pill, which leads to awakening, or take the blue pill and remain ignorant. Neo must choose for himself. He's not forced into enlightenment. In Gnosticism, Yeshua is a much different character than in Christianity. He's not God's son, he doesn't die for man's sins. Instead, Yeshua, or Jesus, is a bringer of knowledge, not just salvation. He does not force people to believe, but encourages personal enlightenment. Awakening comes from seeking knowledge oneself. As a note, color psychology plays a huge part in films like The Matrix. In the film, red is often the color that symbolizes passion, love, danger, or intensity, while blue is melancholy, stability, and cleanliness. This choice represents more than just the colors, more than just the difference between knowledge and ignorance, but about danger or safety. Knowing the truth of the world and one's existence is often dangerous. Do you trade the safety of not knowing for the dangers of being awake? In Gnosticism, the demiurge is a lesser god, also called Yaldabaoth, in the Gospel of Judas. He created the flawed material world and masquerades as the true god. The demiurge enforces ignorance and oppression, fearing those who seek truth and punishing those like Morpheus, Neo, Sophia, and Yeshua who would teach it. In the Matrix, the architect is essentially the demiurge, an intellectually cold being who designed the Matrix and controls human fate. Like the demiurge, he does not care about human suffering, only about maintaining the cycle of control. It's worth noting that the pure white of the architect's design and his appearance as an old man is indicative of his role and persona as a god allegory. He carries the same symbolism as we usually see of the Christian ideal of God, but Neo is the enemy of the architect, not his scion, and this is what makes the Matrix closer to a Gnostic allegory than to a Christian one. In Gnosticism, the material world is a prison, but there is a higher realm of true existence called the Pleroma. Gnostic Jesus teaches that those who would wake up will return to the divine realm. In the Matrix, Zion is the last human city, representing the spiritual world free from the Matrix's illusion. Neo's mission is to protect Zion, saving those who would have been freed from the illusion. In the real world, Zion is the source from which humanity comes. It's given the name of the heavenly city in Christian mythology to further invoke the religious symbolism behind the film. Now also seems like a good time to bring this up because there's been some talk online about the connections to the name Zion, as well as the Israel-Palestine conflict, with some people claiming that the Wachowskis are Jewish, but I could literally find no proof of that. The Wachowskis are of Polish descent, and their support seems to lean on the side of Palestine, since Lily Wachowski herself joins more than 4,000 signatures offering support and love for the native Gazans who have been victims of Netanyahu's apartheid. So who rules Zion? No one. In contrast to the Matrix's structured hierarchy, Zion operates as a free society, resisting control. This aligns with Gnostic ideas that true enlightenment means rejecting the rule of false gods. In Gnostic texts, those who free themselves from the demiurge's illusion gather in a sacred place of knowledge and truth, just as humans who escape the Matrix find their way to Zion. But then, the fall of Zion is a cyclical collapse. The Matrix has been rebooted multiple times, and Zion has fallen multiple times before Neo's cycle. This reflects Gnostic eschatology, where false reality collapses repeatedly, only for enlightened souls to rise again. Now let's look at something a little more in depth, because the characters themselves have some surprising parallels to Gnostic characters, from Jesus to the demiurge, the divine feminine, and archons. Morpheus' ship is the Nebuchadnezzar, and serves as the primary vessel for human resistance fighters who have escaped the illusion of the Matrix. The ship's name itself is significant as it references the King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon, who is famous for the Christian Bible's Book of David. In the story, Nebuchadnezzar has prophetic dreams about the fate of empires. This not only foreshadows Morpheus' belief in philosophy, but is significant since Morpheus takes his own name from the Greek god of dreams. This also symbolizes his role in awakening people from the illusion. His coat and scarf mirror a priest's robes and mantle, reflecting his role as a spiritual leader of the resistance. Morpheus is the first to recognize Neo's potential as the One, a divine messianic figure, parallel to how John the Baptist prepared the way for Jesus in Gnostic traditions. His unwavering faith in destiny and knowledge drives him, despite being seen as fanatical by others. Neo is the Christ figure. His name means new, but is also an anagram of one, and symbolizes rebirth as well as his prophetic role. Focusing on his appearance in the real world, his worn and tattered attire gives him a monastic feeling that symbolizes a detachment from material illusion. He begins as an ignorant soul, a trapped human, but undergoes gnosis to realize his divine nature. Like the Gnostic Jesus, he doesn't demand blind faith, but asks others to seek the truth themselves. He learns to transcend death and manipulate reality, being the only one who can manipulate the Matrix in ways even the archetypes agents find difficult to counter. And just like Gnostic Jesus, he teaches the world we are aware of is an illusion. If there's one total opposite to Neo, it has to be Cipher. I know you're thinking Agent Smith, but hear me out. Cipher, he's their code guy, spending all day staring at the lines of flowing green codes as if they were Gnostic scripture. Cipher represents Judas. In Gnostic mythology, Judas is a betrayer. Ergo, Cipher betrays Neo and Morpheus to return to his comfortable illusion, a state of ignorance, but also bliss, where steak tastes like steak, and where chicken tastes like chicken. In fact, Cipher's deal with Agent Smith mirrors a Faustian pact. He trades his knowledge of the real world for the sensory pleasures of the false world. Even the name Cipher means a hidden code. He is the soul who rejects enlightenment and sides with the demiurge's archons. Archons are the enforcers of the demiurge's control. In Christianity, they would serve a dual role as both angels and as demons, and we see this allegorically throughout the Matrix. The enemies that Neo faces along the way are all symbolic of demons, ghosts, and trickster devils. The agents are like a collective legion, especially Agent Smith, while the Merovingian comes across a bit like a Mephistopheles figure. He offers bargains and deals that are always more aligned with his favor. Even the machines in the real world, like a mixture of eldritch squid monster and technological antibodies flowing through the veins of the planet, eliminating humanity like, well, a disease. Lastly, I can't help but point out one of the most important aspects of the Matrix as a Gnostic allegory, and that's the concept of the divine feminine. In Gnostic mythology, wisdom and gnosis are inherently feminine energy. The Gnostic goddess Sophia is the keeper of wisdom, the creator of the demiurge, and the protector of the source. The most obvious allegory to this is the Oracle. She is the direct opposite to the architect, which mirrors the Gnostic belief in the divine masculine and the divine feminine presence. However, the masculine god is a false one. Their duality is more about a continual cycle of death and rebirth, control and revolution, creation and destruction. But the cyclical nature of their relationship is something also found in Gnostic mythology. Trinity, on the other hand, is a figure more like Mary Magdalene. Now, Mary's role in Christian canon is very brief, as she's a sex worker who is redeemed by Yeshua and goes on to live in service to him. But Gnostics valued Mary not just as a follower, but as a disciple. In the book of Thomas, a Gnostic text, Simon Peter says, "Let Mary go forth from among us, for women are not worthy of the life." To which Jesus replies, "Behold, I shall lead her that I may make her male, in order that she may also become a living spirit like you males. For every woman who makes herself male shall enter into the kingdom of heaven." Potential trans allegory aside, this shows that at least according to the Gnostic interpretation of Jesus, he saw Mary as one of his disciples and potentially as a love interest. With Trinity, she is seen as Neo's equal. She begins as a more experienced fighter and helps him find his way. For every time Trinity saves Neo, Neo saves Trinity. They are in perfect balance. And now, I'm going to talk about Switch, because a little bittersweet agony is good sometimes. Switch is one of the most tragic characters, one of the first to be killed by Cipher's betrayal. Their appearance is always androgynous, both inside the Matrix and without, and it's not just speculation they were originally meant to be betrayed by a male actor and female actor, respectively. Switch represents those who begin a journey toward enlightenment but are destroyed before they can reach it. This is a common belief in Gnosticism where a soul is stopped by the archons before they can fully awaken to themselves. Switch's role was brief, but deeply symbolic. They change between masculine and feminine, representing Gnostic duality. They wear white instead of black, suggesting non-conformity. With short hair and an androgynous look, they reinforce a theme of fluidity, aligning with Gnostic ideals of transcending earthly labels. Neo's death in Matrix Revolutions aligns more closely with Christian belief of messianic martyrdom than it does for Gnostic Docetism. Docetism comes from the Greek word dokein, meaning to seem. What this means is they took Apostle Paul literally when he said in Romans 8:3 that Yeshua came in the likeness of sinful flesh. See, while proto-Orthodox Christians argued that the Christ was both fully human and fully divine, and that it was necessary for him to suffer while on earth, Docetic Gnosticists said he only appeared human, but that his very body was an illusion to represent the demiurge's fictional reality. This might be an easy allegory for how people look different in the Matrix and without, being only a mental projection of themselves. But more than that, it draws the clear line between the differences that we can see in the Matrix. Neo still suffers. He takes damage. He may have the ability to break all the rules, but in the end, he still loses his sight and his very life. He's held up by the machines with his arms outstretched, evoking a crucifix visual punctuated by the line from the machines, "It is done," supposedly the last words spoken by the Christian Jesus in John 19:30, but also in the book of Revelations, where God declares it is done in the context of a new heaven and a new earth, mirroring cyclical Gnosticism. What Neo sees next is a divine light, the Pleroma, Trinity, and then the Matrix resets. Not the end, but a new cycle to slowly awaken more and more souls to the truth. Because people cannot be forced to accept the truth. It must happen naturally, often painfully. And so, cyclical stories, eternal struggles, immortal rivalries are born. Alright, I can't help but feel like this video is getting a little long, but I have a lot more I could go over. I haven't even touched on the Animatrix yet, but I don't feel like editing an hour-long video, so do me a favor. Like, share, and comment on this video. If you want to see part 2, comment Animatrix down below. Patreon is our main hub for all things involved with Tales of Atonement, and our patron support helps us produce our episodes faster and with more consistency. But what's in it for you? From there you can find our Tales of Atonement Discord server, art, music, comics, as well as exclusive viewership for upcoming scripts. Supporting us on Patreon is what shows us we're part of a growing community of artists, actors, history buffs, and storytellers that have become fascinated with our characters these past couple of years. This is our passion project we've put our hearts and souls into over 20 years, and your support really helps keep that flame alive. Right now, a big thanks to Pammy Poo, Heinrich28, Shadow Fox, Charles Tam, Arya Gamari, Jace Morland, and Lunder Lumen. And of course, everyone who joins us each week. At the very least, I hope you'll like this video, subscribe, and ring my bell if it really resonated with you. And I'll see you again next week. Many a Mikkel, Maximuckle.